Jake Harrison stood in the middle of a huge room filled with broken machines and old spaceship parts. His hands were covered in black grease and oil. He wiped them on his already dirty worksuit and smiled at what he had built. In front of him was a large engine that hummed and vibrated with power. The engine looked old and ugly, but it worked perfectly. Jake had made it from pieces of mining equipment, broken cargo ship parts, and things that most people would call garbage. The year was 2287. Humans had been part of the big galactic family for 30 years now. During those 30 years, humans learned something that hurt their pride. Compared to other space species, humans were considered weak and not very special. The Krellian aliens had amazing engines that could bend space itself. The Vexor species had weapons so powerful they could destroy entire moons. The Zifferan people were so good at talking and negotiating that they could create peace between enemies who had fought for hundreds of years. And humans? Humans were just stubborn. They never gave up, and they were really good at fixing things with whatever they could find. Jake worked at Orbital Station Kepler. This was a human space station at the edge of the area controlled by the Galactic Council. Jake used to work with the Earth Defense Fleet, but his bosses sent him to this remote station because he did things his own way. He did not follow the rules exactly. His commanders called him dangerous and reckless. His crew members called him smart and creative. Jake just called himself practical. He did what worked even if it looked strange to others. The space station had a huge scrapyard. This was Jake's favorite place. It was filled with old spaceships that did not work anymore, broken satellites floating in space, and trash from many different alien species. Other engineers looked at this place and saw only junk and waste. Jake looked at the same place and saw opportunities. Every broken part could be used for something new. Every damaged system could be fixed and repurposed. Nothing was truly useless if you knew how to use it. His biggest project sat in the largest repair bay of the station. It barely looked like a real spaceship. The outside shell was made from pieces of 3 different types of cargo ships, all welded together with visible metal seams. The weapons were taken from a destroyed Krellian military ship. The computer that helped navigate through space came from a crashed Zifferan scout ship. According to every rule of engineering and physics that the galaxy knew, this ship should not work. It should be a death trap. Any normal engineer would say it was impossible to fly. But Jake understood something important. When you really need something to work, when you have no other choice, that is when the best ideas come. That is when you create something new and amazing. Necessity makes people innovative. A young woman floated into the repair bay. Her name was Sophie Martinez, and she was Jake's assistant and second in command. She used special magnetic boots that let her walk on the metal floor in the zero-gravity environment. She looked at Jake with a worried expression on her face. "Sir, you have an incoming call from Admiral Patricia Cole," Sophie said. Jake felt his stomach tighten. Admirals almost never called with good news. They only called when something bad happened or when they needed someone to do a dangerous mission. He took a deep breath and nodded. "Put her through," Jake said. A blue holographic image appeared in the air. It showed the face of Admiral Cole. She looked serious and stern like always. Her gray hair was pulled back tight and her eyes were sharp and focused. "Commander Harrison, listen very carefully to what I am about to tell you," the Admiral said. 3 days ago, a Krellian science ship called the Celestial Mind discovered something strange in the Targon Nebula. The Targon Nebula is a huge cloud of gas and dust in deep space. The Krellian ship sent us one short message. They sent some coordinates, which are like an address in space, and they said 2 words. First contact. That means they found something new, maybe a new alien species. After they sent that message, they went completely silent. We cannot contact them anymore. Jake frowned and crossed his arms. His mind was already working, thinking about what could make a Krellian ship go silent. "The Krellians have the best spaceships in the entire galaxy," Jake said. "Their technology is hundreds of years more advanced than ours. If something happened to them if they went silent, what makes you think anyone else can help? What can we possibly do?" Admiral Cole's expression did not change. "The Galactic Council is sending a rescue mission. They are sending their best ships and crews. The Vexor are sending their most powerful warship, the Eternal Victory. The Zifferan are sending their diplomatic ship, the Harmony's Light, and they want humanity to send a ship too. They are calling it humanity's contribution to the mission." Jake slowly turned his head to look at his cobbled-together ship, the ship that was made entirely from scrap and broken parts. the ship that looked like it might fall apart at any moment. He looked back at the Admiral's holographic face. "You cannot be serious," Jake said quietly. "I am completely serious," Admiral Cole replied. "You have exactly 48 hours, 2 days. You need to make that scrap heap ready to fly through deep space. The entire galaxy is going to be watching this mission, Commander. The other species already think humans are primitive and weak. Try not to embarrass us more than we already are. Do you understand?" The holographic image disappeared, leaving Jake and Sophie alone in the quiet repair bay. Sophie moved closer to Jake. Her face showed both excitement and fear. She was nervous but also interested in the challenge. "Well," Jake said slowly. He rolled up the sleeves of his worksuit and looked at his strange spaceship with determination in his eyes. "It looks like the galaxy is about to learn an important lesson. They are about to learn why you should never underestimate human creativity and determination. Go tell the crew to get ready. Wake everyone up. We have work to do. We are about to show the entire galaxy what humanity does best." "What is that, sir?" Sophie asked. "What do humans do best?" Jake smiled. It was a confident smile, the smile of someone who had faced impossible challenges before and won. His eyes sparkled with determination and creative energy. "We improvise," Jake said. "We make things work with whatever we have. That is the human way. Now let's get to work." The Targon Nebula hung in the darkness of space like a giant painting. It was filled with swirling clouds of purple and blue gas. The gas glowed softly because of light from distant stars. It was beautiful but also dangerous. The nebula was huge, stretching across millions of miles of empty space. 3 spaceships arrived at the nebula. They came out of faster-than-light travel, which is a special way of moving through space very quickly. When each ship appeared, there was a bright flash of light and energy. The 3 ships were very different from each other. The first ship was the Vexor warship called Eternal Victory. It was absolutely massive and terrifying. The ship was 2 kilometers long, which is longer than 20 football fields placed end to end. Its hull was covered in smooth black armor that seemed to absorb light. Hundreds of weapon batteries covered its surface. These weapons were so powerful they could destroy entire planets if needed. The ship's shields were strong enough to protect it from almost anything, even a star exploding. Commander Zekthor stood on the bridge of this mighty ship. He was a Vexor, which meant he was very tall, much taller than any human. His skin looked like it was made of crystal and reflected light like a prism, creating small rainbows. He had 4 arms and he crossed all of them over his chest. This was a Vexor gesture that showed confidence and power. The second ship was very different. It was called Harmony's Light, and it belonged to the Zipheron people. This ship did not look like it was built in a factory. Instead, it looked like it had been grown like a plant or a tree. Its surface was smooth with organic curves and flowing lines. The ship had no visible weapons at all. Instead, it had many communication devices and diplomatic meeting rooms. The Zipheron believed in solving problems through talking, not fighting. Ambassador Lyra commanded this ship. She was a Zipheron, which meant her skin could change colors and patterns to show her emotions and feelings. Right now, as she looked at the mysterious nebula, her skin showed patterns of interest and curiosity. Then came the human ship, and it was nothing like the other 2. Jake's ship, which he had named the Defiant Scrap, came out of faster-than-light travel with no grace at all. It tumbled and spun like a drunk person trying to walk straight. The ship was a complete mess to look at. Its hull was made from pieces of 4 different types of spaceships all welded together. You could see the seams where the pieces were joined. The seams were rough and ugly. The ship had several thruster engines, but they were all different sizes and they pointed in slightly different directions. On top of the ship, there was what looked like a normal civilian communication dish that appeared to be attached with duct tape. The whole ship looked like someone had taken parts from a junkyard and randomly stuck them together. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Commander Zekthor stared at his viewing screen. His 4 eyes opened wide with shock and disbelief. He could not believe what he was seeing. "By the ancient stars," Zekthor said quietly. "Is that supposed to be a spaceship? How is it even flying?" Ambassador Lyra's skin pattern shifted to a confused purple color. She tried to be polite, as Zipherons always were, but even she could not hide her surprise. "I believe that is the human contribution to our mission," Lyra said carefully. "How very resourceful and creative of them." Inside the Defiant Scrap, Jake ignored the incoming messages from both alien ships. He was too busy trying to control his ship and stop it from spinning. Sophie worked at the navigation console, pressing buttons and adjusting controls. She had to constantly compensate for the fact that the ship naturally wanted to lean to the left side. "Let me guess," Jake said with a small smile. "The fancy alien ships are already judging us and thinking we are stupid." Sophie looked at her communication screen and tried not to laugh. "The Vexor commander has sent 3 different messages. He keeps asking if we need help or if our ship is broken. The Zifferon ambassador sent a very polite message. She asked if we are aware that our ship is experiencing what she calls structural asymmetry." "Structural asymmetry," Jake repeated. "That is a nice way of saying our ship looks lopsided and ugly." "Okay, open a communication channel to both ships. Let me talk to them." 2 holographic images appeared in front of Jake. One showed Commander Zekthor, who looked bemused and confused. The other showed Ambassador Lyra, whose skin showed polite concern in shades of light blue. "This is Commander Jake Harrison of the Earth vessel Defiant Scrap," Jake said formally. "We are here to help find the missing Krellian ship, the Celestial Mind." Zekthor's 4 eyes blinked one after another in sequence. This was a Vexor expression of doubt. "Commander Harrison, I must ask you a direct question. Is your vessel actually capable of combat operations? The nebula is very dense. It is filled with dangerous radiation and floating debris. If the Krellians encountered hostile enemies, we may need to fight." "Can your ship fight?" "My ship may not look pretty or impressive," Jake replied calmly, "but she has everything we need where it counts. We have made some special modifications." "Modifications," Ambassador Lyra repeated. Her tone was very carefully neutral, like she was trying hard not to sound doubtful. "Let's just focus on finding the Krellians," Jake suggested, wanting to change the subject. "Sophie, launch the scan probes." 6 small objects shot out from the sides of the Defiant Scrap. They spread out in different directions, forming a search pattern. Back on the Eternal Victory, Commander Zekthor watched his tactical display screen. His confusion grew even stronger. "Commander Harrison," Zekthor said slowly, "your scan probes appear to be modified cargo containers. They are just boxes with sensor equipment strapped to the outside." "Yes, that is correct," Jake said simply. "But they work, right? That is all that matters." The probes did work, and they worked better than anyone expected. Within just a few minutes, they detected something very important. The sophisticated sensors on the Eternal Victory and Harmony's light had completely missed it. The probes found a faint energy signature deep inside the nebula. The signature was hidden by all the natural radiation from the gas clouds. But when the computer analyzed it, the signature matched Krellian technology. "How did you find that?" Ambassador Lyra asked. She was genuinely curious and impressed. "How did your simple probes penetrate through all the interference?" Jake shrugged like it was obvious. "Your sensors are too sophisticated and smart. They automatically filter out noise and things they think are not important. My probes are basic and simple. They are dumb enough to pick up everything, all the signals and noise. Then I sort through all the data manually and find what I need." Commander Zekthor's crystalline skin shifted through several different colors. This was a sign of deep thought in Vexor physiology. He was reconsidering his opinion of the human engineer. "Your method is crude and primitive," Zekthor admitted. "But it is also effective. It works." "Very well, Commander Harrison. We will follow your lead. You guide us." The 3 ships began moving deeper into the nebula. They followed the signal that Jake's probes had found. As they traveled through the thick gas clouds, Jake noticed something troubling on his sensor screens. The radiation levels were getting higher, but it was not happening naturally. Something was generating an interference field on purpose. "This is deliberate," Jake said quietly. "This is not natural. Someone or something is creating this interference. Someone does not want us here." As if the nebula had heard his words and wanted to prove him right, everything suddenly changed. The nebula erupted with bright flashes of weapons fire. Unknown ships appeared from the gas clouds like ghosts materializing from fog. The ships were sleek and angular, shaped like sharp blades. They moved with predatory precision, like wolves hunting prey. Their weapons were already tracking and aiming at the 3 vessels. The battle for the Targon Nebula had begun. Jake's scrapyard ship was about to face its first real test against unknown enemies. The unknown attackers struck fast and hard. There were 12 enemy ships in total. Each ship was roughly the size of a fighter craft, which is smaller than the 3 big ships. But these enemy ships moved in perfect coordination with each other. They worked together like they shared one brain. This suggested they were either controlled by very advanced computers or they were some kind of hive mind species. Their weapons fired concentrated beams of pure energy. The beams cut through the gas clouds of the nebula like searchlights cutting through fog. Commander Zekthor did not hesitate. He gave orders immediately. The Eternal Victory was a warship, built for exactly this kind of situation. The massive guns on the ship swiveled and rotated, tracking multiple enemy targets at the same time. The weapon systems were so advanced they could aim at 10 different targets independently. The guns fired and explosive rounds tore through space. Each shot carried enough power to vaporize a small moon. 2 of the attacking ships exploded instantly. They dissolved into expanding clouds of superheated debris and gas. Raise shields to maximum power, Commander Zekthor commanded. Deploy all-point defense systems. Ambassador Lyra, I strongly recommend you withdraw your ship to a safe distance. This is going to get dangerous. The Harmony's light responded gracefully. The organic ship pivoted smoothly, its hull shifting colors as it activated stealth and cloaking systems. Within just a few seconds, the Zephyron vessel had become nearly invisible. It was like a ghost in the nebula, there but not there. The enemy sensors could not detect it anymore. That left Jake's defiant scrap exposed in open space. It looked defenseless and weak. 3 of the enemy ships broke away from their formation. They turned and vectored directly toward the human vessel. The enemy had clearly identified the defiant scrap as the weakest target, the easiest one to destroy. Sophie, power up the surprise packages, Jake said. His voice was calm and steady, like he had expected this to happen. Sophie looked at him with wide eyes. All of them, sir? Are you sure? Every single one, Jake confirmed. The defiant scrap had no energy shields at all. Jake had calculated that the power requirements would be too high for his salvaged reactor. The reactor simply could not generate enough energy to maintain shields. So instead, Jake had invested his limited resources in something different. He called it reactive armor. The ship's hull was covered in layers of ablative plating. This plating was studded with hundreds of small explosive charges. When enemy fire hit the hull, the charges would detonate outward, disrupting and dissipating the incoming energy beams. It was primitive technology. It was also very dangerous because the explosives were right next to the hull. But it worked beautifully. The first enemy energy beam struck the defiant scrap's left side. Instead of penetrating through the hull and destroying the ship, the blast triggered a cascade of small explosions. The explosions created a wave of force that pushed against the beam and dissipated its energy. Scorch marks appeared on the hull, black burn marks that showed where the attack had hit. But the ship remained intact. The hull was not breached. Return fire immediately, Jake ordered. The defiant scrap's weapons were just as unconventional as everything else on the ship. Jake had mounted 6 railguns that he had salvaged from old mining equipment. These railguns were originally designed to break apart asteroids so miners could extract valuable minerals. They were not military weapons. They lacked the precision and accuracy of proper military guns. But they fired solid projectiles made of dense metal at relativistic speeds, which means nearly as fast as light. At close range, the kinetic energy of these projectiles became Jake's greatest weapon. When something hits you that hard and that fast, it does not matter if you have shields or armor. Chunks of dense metal screamed through space. Each projectile weighed several tons. The first projectile caught an enemy ship completely off guard. The ship's commander had not expected such a primitive weapon. The metal chunk punched through the enemy hull like a bullet through paper. The ship began tumbling away, spinning out of control. Atmosphere and air vented from the holes in its hull. Its lights flickered and died. Target destroyed, Sophie reported, checking her screens. 2 more enemy ships are closing on our position fast. Deploy the mines, Jake said calmly. Small objects ejected from the defiant scrap's cargo bay. They drifted innocently in the void of space, floating like harmless debris. They looked like ordinary junk, just more scrap to add to the junkyard aesthetic that covered Jake's ship. The enemy vessels ignored these floating objects completely. The enemy was focusing all their attention on what they thought was the primary threat, the ship itself. That was a fatal mistake. Each mine was actually a reprogrammed cargo container. Jake had filled them with thousands of ball bearings, small metal spheres. He had also placed a small explosive charge inside each container. When the enemy ships passed within close proximity of the mines, Jake triggered them remotely using a wireless signal. The explosions scattered the ball bearings in all directions. Thousands of projectiles expanded outward in growing spheres, creating instant debris fields. Each ball bearing was moving at lethal velocity. 2 enemy ships flew directly into these kill zones. Their hulls were sleek and smooth, designed for speed and to deflect energy weapons. But they offered absolutely no protection against simple physics and solid objects moving at high speed. The vessels were shredded like paper in a storm. Their fragments added to the expanding cloud of wreckage and debris. Aboard the Eternal Victory, Commander Zekthor watched his tactical display screen. His 4 eyes were opened as wide as they could go. He was experiencing complete astonishment. "By the crystal throne of my ancestors," Zekthor said slowly. "Did the human just weaponize garbage? Did he just turn trash into weapons?" His tactical officer, a younger Vexer named Krell, nodded slowly. He was reviewing the sensor data, trying to understand what had just happened. "Affirmative, Commander. The human vessel is using improvised weapon systems. None of these weapons appear in any of our military databases. We have no records of anyone using anything like this." "Of course they are not in our databases," Zekthor realized. Understanding dawned on him. "Because they are not weapons at all. They are tools and equipment being used as weapons. This is brilliant strategy. It is also terrifying in equal measure. This human thinks in ways we do not." The remaining enemy ships regrouped in space. They pulled back and reformed their formation. They were clearly recalculating their tactics and strategy. The enemy had expected this to be easy. They had thought overwhelming force would be enough to handle a small fleet of 3 ships. Instead, they now faced a Vexer dreadnought that fought like an unstoppable avalanche, a Zipheron vessel that had somehow vanished completely into the nebula, and a human ship that seemed to violate every rule of conventional warfare that had been established over thousands of years. The enemy commander, wherever he or she was, made a decision. It was time to use their special weapon. The remaining enemy ships all activated a pulse weapon at the same time. They sent out a massive wave of electromagnetic energy. This energy wave disrupted electronic systems and computers across a very wide radius. It was designed to disable enemy ships without destroying them. The Eternal Victory's shields flickered and dimmed for a moment. But they held strong. The ship's advanced computer systems compensated and adapted quickly. Routing power through backup systems. Harmony's light, protected by its stealth field and distance, remained completely unaffected. The pulse did not even reach it. The Defiant scrap went completely dark. All its lights turned off instantly. The engine stopped firing. Jake sat in the suddenly silent bridge. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting everything in red shadows. The red light made everyone's faces look ghostly. Sophie looked at Jake with deep concern and worry. "Sir, main power is completely offline," Sophie reported. "Life support is running on backup batteries. All weapon systems are non-responsive. We are dead in space." Jake smiled. It was a confident, knowing smile. "Perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. They think we are disabled and helpless. Now we spring the real surprise on them." Sophie frowned in confusion. "What surprise? What are you talking about, sir?" "There is one thing every engineer learns when you work with scrap and old equipment," Jake explained. Always have a backup system. And our backup system does not need computers or electronics at all." Deep inside the Defiant Scrap's engineering bay, in the heart of the ship, a mechanical system clicked to life. Jake had secretly installed manual overrides for all critical systems. These were old-fashioned hydraulic pumps and mechanical linkages, the kind of technology that existed hundreds of years ago on Earth. They did not use electronics at all. They did not care about electromagnetic pulses. You could hit them with all the electromagnetic energy in the universe and they would keep working. It was ancient technology. Most alien species had abandoned such primitive systems thousands of years ago, but ancient did not mean ineffective. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. The Defiant Scrap's railguns began to rotate on their manual tracks. They were being guided by crew members using optical sights, actually looking through scopes with their eyes like ancient soldiers. Jake had drilled his people for exactly this scenario. The 3 ships regrouped after the intense battle. They gathered together in a relatively safe clearing inside the nebula's thick gas clouds. Jake had managed to restore power to the Defiant Scrap, though several systems still flickered on and off with intermittent failures. Sophie and her small engineering team worked frantically to repair whatever they could using the limited spare parts they had brought with them. In other words, They improvised fixes using whatever random materials they could find on the ship. A communication request came through to Jake's bridge. Both the Eternal Victory and Harmony's Light were calling at the same time. Jake accepted both calls. Two holographic figures appeared floating in the air in front of him. Commander Zekthor spoke first. His crystalline features were showing what Jake had learned to recognize as deep respect in Vexor culture. The color swirling under his skin had changed to warmer tones. "Commander Harrison," Zekthor said formally, "your tactics during that battle were highly unorthodox. They were unlike anything I have seen in 40 years of military service, but they were also remarkably effective. I wish to formally apologize for my initial assessment of your vessel and your capabilities. I was wrong to judge based on appearances." Ambassador Lyra's skin patterns shifted to a warm golden color, showing friendship and admiration. "Indeed, Commander. Your species has a saying that I have heard before. Do not judge a book by its cover. I now understand the deep wisdom of those words. Appearances can be very deceiving." "I appreciate that," Jake said simply. "But we still have a mission to complete. Those enemy ships did not attack us randomly or by accident. They were guarding something. They were protecting something important. The Celestial Mind," Commander Zekthor agreed, nodding. "The Corellian science vessel. The signal from it is much stronger now that we are deeper in the nebula. My sensors indicate the signal is coming from some kind of structure. It is located approximately 200 kilometers deeper into the nebula from our current position." "A structure?" Sophie asked, leaning forward with interest. "Is it natural, like a strange asteroid formation? Or is it artificial, meaning someone built it?" Ambassador Lyra studied her own display screens carefully. Her skin showed patterns of confusion and fascination. "It is definitely artificial. Someone or something built it. But the composition and materials are unlike anything in all of our council records. Whatever species built this structure used materials and construction techniques that we have never encountered before in the entire galaxy." Jake felt a familiar tingle of curiosity run through his body. He had spent his entire life taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. Unknown technology was like a drug to an engineer. It was irresistible. "Then let's go see what has the whole galaxy so worried and spooked." The three vessels began moving cautiously through the nebula. Their sensors constantly scanned for more enemy ships. The gas clouds grew thicker and denser as they went deeper. This forced them to slow their approach considerably. Visibility dropped to just a few kilometers, even with the most advanced sensors. It was like trying to see through thick fog. Then they saw it and everyone fell silent. The structure hung in empty space like a mathematical impossibility. It looked like something that should not be able to exist. Its smooth surfaces curved in ways that actually hurt to look at. The curves suggested geometries that existed in more than just 3 dimensions. The human eye and brain were not designed to process such shapes. It was roughly spherical in overall shape, perhaps 5 kilometers in diameter. That made it larger than most space stations. The structure glowed with a faint blue luminescence that had nothing to do with reflected starlight. The light seemed to come from within the structure itself. "By the ancient crystals of my homeworld," Commander Zekthor whispered. His voice was full of awe and fear. "What is that thing?" "A ship," Jake said quietly, studying it intently. "Or maybe a space station. Perhaps it is both at the same time. But look over there, at that section." He highlighted a specific section of the alien structure on the shared display screens. There, attached to the side of the mysterious object, was a familiar shape. It was the Celestial Mind, the missing Corellian science vessel. The Corellian ship was docked with the alien structure. Its lights were still on, glowing in the darkness. That suggested the ship still had power and possibly life support for the crew. "They are alive," Ambassador Lyra said. Relief flooded through her voice. Her skin patterns turned a happy green color. "The Corellian crew is still alive. We need to extract them immediately and get them to safety." "Agreed," Commander Zekthor said firmly. "But we must proceed with extreme caution. That alien structure could contain defensive systems and weapons that we have not seen yet. It might have defenses far more dangerous than those ships that attacked us." Jake studied the alien artifact on his screens very carefully. Something about it bothered him. There was a pattern his engineer's mind was trying to recognize and understand. He looked at the surface markings, the energy signature readings, even the way space itself seemed to curve around the structure. "It is a relay station," Jake said suddenly. His voice was certain. The others looked at him with confusion. "Please explain your reasoning," Commander Zekthor requested. "Think about it," Jake said, pointing at his screens. "Those attack ships we fought, they were automated drones. They were not very sophisticated or intelligent. They were just programmed with simple instructions to defend this area. This structure in front of us is transmitting something. It is broadcasting a signal. The signal is so complex and advanced that our sensors cannot even begin to decode it. But it is definitely broadcasting outward into space." "Broadcasting to whom?" Ambassador Lyra asked. But her skin patterns had already shifted to a worried purple color. This suggested she already knew the answer to her own question. "To whoever built this relay station," Jake answered. "And if the Krellians found this place, if they approached it and docked their ship with it, they might have accidentally triggered some kind of automated first contact protocol. A program designed to activate when someone new arrives. Suddenly, a new signal burst from the alien structure. It was incredibly powerful. The signal was so strong it made every sensor array on all 3 ships scream with warnings. Alarms blared on every bridge. Interestingly, Jake's more primitive and simple systems actually handled the signal better than the advanced alien technology. To his basic receivers, the signal's incredible complexity just appeared as random noise. Then something began to emerge from deeper within the nebula. Something enormous. It was a ship. But calling it merely a ship felt completely inadequate and wrong. This vessel dwarfed the Eternal Victory. It made the massive Vexor dreadnought look like a small toy. It was a construction of impossible scale and size. Where the relay station had suggested alien intelligence, this ship screamed it. Every line and curve of the vessel showed purposeful design. Weapons ports, if that was what they were, lined the hull in patterns that made any kind of tactical analysis completely impossible. The ship moved with a grace that defied its enormous size. It positioned itself carefully between the 3 council ships and the relay station, blocking their path. "All ships, hold your current position," Commander Zekthor commanded. His voice was tight with tension. "Do not make any hostile moves whatsoever. Do not charge weapons. Do not raise shields aggressively. Ambassador Lyra, please attempt communication immediately." Harmony's light began sending out broadcasting signals on every known frequency. The Zephyrin ship cycled through every diplomatic protocol that had been developed over thousands of years. It transmitted universal mathematical sequences, the kind that any intelligent species should recognize. The alien ship remained completely silent. It did not respond at all. Sophie looked at Jake. Her face showed deep worry and fear. "Sir, if that thing decides to attack us, we will not survive. Even the Eternal Victory's powerful shields would not hold against weapons from something that massive." Jake nodded slowly. His mind was racing, thinking through possibilities. Then he noticed something important. The alien ship's energy signature was fluctuating in a very regular pattern. The changes were not random. They were not hostile. The pattern was almost like the ship was waiting for something. "It is analyzing us," Jake realized. "The ship is trying to determine if we are a threat or not. The Krellians probably approached it the same way we are, cautiously and diplomatically. Then we should maintain that careful posture," Ambassador Lyra suggested. "We should continue being peaceful and non-threatening." "No," Jake said firmly. An idea was forming in his mind. "That is not enough. We need to show this intelligence something the Krellians could not show. We need to demonstrate something uniquely human. We need to show it human ingenuity and creativity." He turned quickly to Sophie. "Prepare to transmit our ship's complete schematics and blueprints. Send everything. Show them the salvaged parts, the improvised repairs, the jury-rigged systems. Transmit the entire chaotic mess that is the Defiant scrap." "Sir," Sophie protested, "that will reveal all our weaknesses and vulnerabilities. If they want to destroy us, we would be giving them a blueprint of exactly where to shoot." "Exactly right," Jake agreed. "That is the point. We are going to show this